8 creatures in Ray's deck, 13 in Chris's. Now, what I'm looking at as something to really leverage the game for Ray is that he has 3 Dig Through Times and 2 Painful Truths in the main. As far as card draw goes for Andersen, you would expect to see maybe I'll Read the Bones, a Painful Truths. He doesn't even have that. He just has... He has a set of Obzon Charms and nothing else to help him.
Oh, wow. And 4 of Ray's creatures are actually Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which is kind of fudging the numbers. A Planeswalker and a draw spell in its own right.
Yeah, well, players are going to trade some lands to begin with. So we're underway here for Cran. It's a Shambling Vent, and he'll lead off with Transgress the Mind. This is a card that's worked its way into the main decks. We see really just a bunch of spells. So Anticipate, Dispel, Grasp of Darkness, and a main deck copy of Radiant Flames for Ray.
I imagine that Chris is wishing that he was casting Inquisition of Kozilek right now. That Radiant Flames is not going to have a lot of impact on Chris's deck without a Sylvan Advocate in play. Really, you probably just want to take the Anticipate out of that hand if you had your pick.
Yeah, the only card he can take is Radiant Flames. It's a 1 in Ray's deck, and you mentioned it, the only card can hit out of Andersen's deck is the 4 Sylvan Advocates.
Yeah, and I figure if Chris had an Advocate, it would have been the turn 2 play, just to get on the board. The Transgress not super important on turn 2.
You're right. Now, sometimes, interestingly enough, with Mardu Green, if you look at Chris's lands, the deck can get all 4 of its colors, but getting that Shambling Vent into play on time and the ability to play an Advocate on turn 2 is really not free in the deck. And even in a situation where Chris has the Advocate, it's possible that he's going to fetch or get lands differently just to really shore up things.
Yep, Khan's fetch lands and battle lands are pretty strong mana bases, but they're not always the smoothest.
Yeah. Turn 3 will be a Bloodstained Mire fetching just for basic swamp. So Chris, with the chance to go for Cinderglade here, is not getting his green mana just yet.
Yeah, heavy suggestion that he's looking to just find dual lands on any future fetch lands and make those come into play untapped, or just has some duals in his hand.
Yeah, it looks like he does have Canopy Vista. So that will be his 4th land. And now we see Siege Rhino, 4 lands in Rhino. Of course, you know, we've seen a lot of this over the last couple years.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be missed by a lot of players.
I play it, and I'm not going to miss it. It's, you know that feeling where you feel priced into play? Like, I don't even like this, but I feel silly doing anything else.
Right. It's a Bloodbraid Elf that always hits Lightning Helix.
Yeah.
Has to go upstairs. Has to go upstairs.
But no.
That was one thing about Bloodbraid Elf, though, is you didn't always want to cast out an empty board, but Siege Rhino, you just always want to cast every turn all the time.
For Ray, he'll end step Anticipate. As we know, he has a Grasp of Darkness in hand. That card not particularly live against Siege Rhino.
Yeah, you'll have to catch it in combat if you want that to finish the job. Ray does have 3 copies of Cletus in his deck, so the long-term plan is going to be to get a Cletus in play and to try to catch that Rhino on the blocks.
Looks like he does take that copy of Cletus. He was looking at Kolaghan's command as well. His removal's not lining up very well at the moment. You know, we talked about Grasp of Darkness and Dispel both in hand. You start by Duressing Chris.
Well.
Yeah, Duress hits Crackling Doom. Well, that's great. And Chris's hand is 3 more lands. Now, Saving Grace, he does have a 2nd Shambling Vent.
Right. He'll be able to get up to 8 mana, inevitably inactivate both of those, but that's a far cry from where he wants to be.
And this is a scary spot for Chris. A Jace Vryn's Prodigy on the table for Ray. Rhino will hit Ray down to 12. Now, one of the breakers in this matchup is a card like Jace, but Chris is going to try to end the game very quickly. His top deck was another Siege Rhino. Ray down to 9.
With 2 Rhinos in play, that the plan to wait to try to cast him with Grasp looks a lot less exciting. You know, you just might not have the time.
Yeah, I mean, Siege Rhino is just all sorts of good at ending the game.
Yeah, and for as good as Wandering Fumarole is, Ray is not going to be able to trade with even 1 Rhino with that one.
Well, if we had enough lands, Fumarole and Grasp of Darkness could team up to kill one.
Right. I imagine that we're dead before that's taking care of the first Rhino.
And even then it's hard because sometimes you try to block and then use your blocking creature land to cast a spell. Well, Fumarole makes green and red mana, so it couldn't even cast the Grasp. He'd need 3 to active. You know, he'd have to be on 6 lands to make that kind of play.
Exactly. I believe it would have to be 7 total for Grasp plus Fumarole, and it had to be, yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's a ton.
Yeah. He has to kill at least 1 Siege Rhino before we think about anything like that.
Yeah. At 8 life, that is no easy task.
Ray is set to flip the Jace this turn, so he could have a 2-spell turn here. Doesn't have 4 black mana, so he couldn't double grasp, though.
All right, Jace will loot. Dre discards a mountain. It will flip. He just wants to find some kill spells here. So now, interestingly, when I'm actually looking at Ray's setup of kill spells, he's not very well equipped to deal with Siege Rhinos.
Yeah, once it's in play, it's really tough. He does have 2 copies of Murderous Cut, but other than that, it's pretty much 2-spell territory or try to counter it on the way down, which he, of course, missed his opportunity for.
Jace plus us to 6, and we're back to Chris's turn.
Yeah, a couple Clash of Wills, couple Void Shatters for Ray, but nothing on time in that department.
All right, well, here comes Chris. He's going to try to end this. Activating Shambling Vent will give him 8 points of power. Remember, one of those Rhinos is a 2/5 from the Jace Telepath Unbound. So a 2/5, a 4/5, and a 2/3. Here comes 8 damage. Pressure's on for Ray. Grasp of Darkness looks like it'll take care of the Shambling Vent. And he's taking the full 6 down to 2.
Yep, Chris knew it was coming. He did see the Grasp earlier. He knows that Ray just has a Dispel in hand because he saw that one as well with the Transgress, and he won't be able to activate both vents in a turn anyway, so he may as well rumble with it.
And now, are we still playing? Looks like Ray picked up Kolagon's command for the turn. That, I don't believe, does anything here.
Too little, too late. With the Grasp spent, he won't be able to 2-spell the Rhinos.
Looks like a land, a command. And that's his hand.
He could Jace back the Grasp and then double that up with the command, but then he still just has a Rhino and a Shambling Vent on the other side of the table that are both lethal.
Siege Rhino just too big. Can't Dispel one, can't Kolagon's command one. I mean, he could be looking at flashing back Grasp and using Grasp and Kolagon's command. If he had some more life points to work with, he could stay alive. Instead, he's going to flash back the Anticipate, finds nothing, and game 1 is over to Chris Andersen.
Yeah, and there's really not much that he could have even found there. You could find a Murderous Cut to deal with 1 Rhino, but that's not even half of your problems.
No, not at all. All right, Andersen up a game, so we're going to go over to Ray Perez's sideboard. He's going to have to find some answers here. Maybe he has some ways to actually kill Rhinos more cleanly. What are we looking at?
Well, he doesn't have any ways to kill it more cleanly expressly, but Transgress the Mind and Disdainful Stroke will help him catch them before they come down. And then he has Dragonlord Slumgar to just go over the top and say, that's my Rhino now, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, I do really love Transgress in this matchup. I think you had a Disdainful Stroke. These cards that are answers to Goblin Dark Dwellers and answers to Siege Rhino seem really well positioned. I might even be a fan, based on Ray, of boarding some of these Ruinous Paths.
Yeah, Ruinous Path definitely would tag the Rhino. Yeah, that one will for sure be coming in.
We'll go over to, so on Chris Andersen's side, he also has some board cards for the matchup.
Ob Nixilis to go over the top on his side. It'll be his only instance of card draw outside of the Painful Truths in the sideboard as well, so those ones are for sure coming in. Duress to deal with some of Raymond's spells in his hand, play around those counter spells. Transgress the Mind just to deal with some of Ray's better spells like Dig Through Time.
Absolutely. All right. Those of you who joined us last weekend, Star City Games had our first Grand Prix of the season in Grand Prix DC, but that is not the end of things. In just 2 months, we are going to be heading over to Grand Prix Charlotte. That is our Modern Grand Prix here. Modern Weekend on May 20th and 22nd. So pairing with Channel Fireball, there are 2 offerings of lots of different Modern events, whether in LA or Charlotte. That weekend. One thing, if you show up, we are giving away the Jace playmat to the main event. This is the Pour Over the Pages Jace artwork here, along, of course, with the GP promo, Stoneforge Mystic, and 1 month of Star City Games Premium. So this is all available with the main event, or if you're not a main event person, you can, of course, get our 3-day Infinite Challenge bracelet. We'll be bringing those back just as we have at all of our Grand Prix. That means unlimited entry to challenge events for the whole weekend. Our rewards packages for the weekend that we're bringing around. We have our premium rewards package, which can get you the Noble Hierarch playmat, sleeves, deck box, and pin. You can pick those up at any time this weekend. Also in attendance, we'll have cosplayer Christine Sprankle here, as well as our guest of honor, Rob Alexander, all here. And other artists, as you can see here, with their arts. So that and more, find out at starcitygames.com/GP Charlotte to register now.
Yeah. Saw Christine Sprankle on that special guest list. She was, of course, the cosplayer who unveiled the new Avacyn card at was it Grand Prix Houston?
Grand Prix Detroit.
Detroit,
she was there,
right.
Yeah. I especially liked it. They were when they unveiled it. There were just angel feathers with blood on them strewn all over the ground of the Abyssinian chapel where she was coming out from.
Yeah, really cool.
That was a great cosplay.
Really cool spectacle for sure.
The chapel is also an escape room for the weekend.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are really into just that escape room stuff. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it out to try it myself, but people really go for those puzzle rooms. Those are exciting.
Yeah, I actually did. I managed to make it to the event. I played a bunch of blue-white Eldrazi mirrors all weekend. It was I want to be a part of Magic history that, in a couple of years when people say, man, you know that Eldrazi deck that they had to ban? I'll be like, yeah. They're like, did you ever play with it? To be like, yeah. Did you play that Grand Prix where everyone played Eldrazi? I'm like, yeah.
I was there.
I was there. And I wanted to say that I played Eldrazi at the event. I didn't want to be that guy who played, goblins at GP Hulk Flash, I want to be like the Hulk Flash player.
Yeah, you'd only be able to, finish second with a deck like that.
All right, pair of creature lands here for Perez and Andersen to start game 2. It's the Fumarole and the Shambling Vent. I'm going to say something. I see a lot of players playing Wandering Fumarole. I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've ever seen that card activated.
I'm pretty sure I don't need either of my hands. I imagine that it's going to be happening in the future, but yeah, haven't really seen it yet.
Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, the play from Perez, and a Duress from Andersen. Sees a second Jace, a Transgress, a Silumgar, and 2 lands. Now here's where I really like Jace in this matchup, is the pressure. So an uncontested Jace, which looks like what we have here, is going to be really strong for Ray. But at the same time, it's very difficult for Chris to keep in cards like Fiery Impulse.
Yeah, exactly. Jace is the only thing that you're able to interact with the Fiery Impulse, so it's like a clear card to board out. But here we see Jace and backup Jace, and you really wish you had 2 copies.
We're gonna go over to Ray. The Transgress the Mind was selected. And if you look at Chris Andersen's hand, all right, I'm gonna lay out for you what's in it. It is 2 Transgress the Minds, an Abzan Charm, 2 Siege Rhinos, and a Chandra.
That's a really good hand.
That is, if he draws lands for the next 2 turns, that hand is gonna hit like a truck.
Oh yeah, the Transgress is huge. It'll take care of the only copy of Dragonlord Silumgar in Raymond's deck, which is one of very few answers to any of those Siege Rhinos.
Jace will loot away a Sunken Hollow. And another Sunken Hollow to play for Ray. Can Cran draw that land, though? I guess if he misses the land, he gets to Transgress for a while.
Yeah, interesting choice on the fetch land there. You want to fetch to find that dual land tap so you can have all your colors and try to find some basics to come into play untapped. Though you are slightly diminishing your odds to draw a land. So there's a decision happening there. It's not huge.
Yeah, I like this fetch from Chris. I think there's a lot of pressure to get basics, but setting up all his colors here. Now what this means is if he draws something like Sylvan Advocate, he'll be able to play it. Draw for the turn didn't help. It was Crackling Doom. He'll Transgress the Mind, however, taking care of Silumgar.
And Raymond's leftovers are not very exciting here, but that active Jace can turn that around very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like all it takes here is for that Jace to loot him into a dig through time, and then suddenly it doesn't matter that Chris's hand is loaded.
Yep, dig would bust it wide open. Even just finding a copy of Painful Truce would be very good here.
Now this is interesting. Ray is fetching turn 4 before activating Jace. So he wants the Planeswalker more than he wants the... he actually wants Jace to be a Planeswalker.
Yeah, that's curious.
Based on his hand, I thought he'd want to loot. Maybe he must have drawn something good, right?
I would assume so. Yeah, flashing back Transgress is not very enticing when our opponent is on 2 lands and has missed their 3rd land drop.
Ray Perez, well, we'll see what you got here. It looks like he's just flashing back that Transgress in his graveyard. And now he's going to get to see the damage. So it is Rhino, Charm, Crackling Doom, Transgress, Chandra.
Notably, taking the Abzan Charm here could significantly stunt Chris's ability to continue playing this game. Chris is looking for the 3rd land, and in all likelihood, that Abzan Charm is just going to be drawing cards to try to find the 4th land for the Rhino, and inevitably up to 6 for the Chandra.
Yeah. Now, are you worried, though, if he leaves him the Crackling Doom and Chris Andersen top decks the untapped land, Doom actually kills the Jace right now?
That's true. Ray is still hanging out with backup Jace, though.
All right, a draw for Chris. How about a 3rd Siege Rhino?
Yeah, Chris is never going to draw a 3rd land anyway, though, so...
When he hits 4 lands, oh man, it's just going to be... There's so many Rhinos.
Yeah, and Ray is still not showing any signs of any ability to actually close this game. 5th land, and we could start seeing activations of the Wandering Fumarole.
Yeah, I mean, if Ray finds a dig through time, so I've been playing a lot of Mardu Green. And I know in this matchup, what I always fear is a situation where my hand is all 4-drops, and my opponent has a Disdainful Stroke and a card drawer and a Jace in play, and I just start feeling like none of these are ever going to work. He just Disdainful Strokes one, then he casts, I don't know, if Painful Truths, then he flashes it back, then he counters the next one, and it's just really miserable.
Yeah, you're so far from being able to cast 2 spells in one turn, and it's so easy for them to counter your 1 spell.
Yeah, outside of Murderous Cut, the Mardu Green deck doesn't really play 2 spells in a turn. I mean, back before Reflector Mage, this would have been the kind of deck that could play a lot of Tasigur, but not anymore. That guy has a real big Reflector Mage problem.
I've had a number of my Tasigurs remanded in my time.
That's oh boy, how's that? That's just basically a counter spell.
It's one of the many reasons that I try to play 4 spell snares. Let's put it that way. It's extremely unpleasant to try to set up Tasigur twice.
All right, Jace up to 3 for Ray, but he just passes the turn.
Chris finally found a land.
He did find a land, and it'll be a Transgress from Ray. Here we see Rhino, Chandra, and Crackling Doom. Well, I mean, I almost feel like he's going to take Crackling Doom. He just...
Yeah, he knew it was there. That's the only reason he's not attacking with the Fumarole, and he's just saying, I really hope you don't have that 4th land on top.
I mean, there's no reason to take Rhino here, right? That's just foolish.
You don't get anywhere. There's just 2 more waiting.
The number of games in which Chris casts 3 Rhinos.
And Disdainful Strokes from Ray will interact with Rhino. They won't interact with Crackling Doom.
So the Transgress is resolved. We'll see where Ray goes from here. He needs a card drawer. Or some sort of way to close. Jace up to 4, a pass. We know cards like Grasp of Darkness and another Jace are in Ray's hand. Chris's draw for the turn was a Kolaghan's Command. He'll just pass. The command may make Ray fetch here.
Or Chris, rather, to find mana to cast it.
Yeah, Chris, not Ray. You're absolutely right. And I like good setup here by Perez. He now has a Kalitas in play. He took care of the Crackling Doom from Chris.
Yeah, so basically, there's a bad window for Chris to find a land for Siege Rhino, but the Kalitas will start closing this game out in a meaningful fashion.
Well, no land for Chris, but he did get a copy of Abzan Charm. That should be enough to take care of Kalitas.
Yeah, and this is a tough choice, too, because Chris really wants to find those lands, but he also doesn't want to just lose to the creature on board.
Right, no, he just has to kill that Kalitas, because he's got to assume that his first Siege Rhino and maybe his second Siege Rhino are going to be met with kill spells, and if all that's happening while a Kalitas is in play, Chris loses.
Yeah, they start getting a stream of 2/2s on Ray's side, and he takes over this game in short order.
Yeah, here we go. A flashback on the next Transgress. We have, get to see who he's on, Kolaghan's Command, 3 Rhinos, Chandra. See a little smirk crossing Ray's face. How am I going to deal with all these 4/5s?
I think Ray is just kind of coming to terms with the fact that Chris has stumbled so much, and he still might lose this game. Because he just hasn't found any of those card draw spells that he really needs to shut the door.
And he plays a 6th land tapped. Now, there is a Chandra in Ray's hand, but the race is going to be on Chris. Hit land 4. It's a fetch land. It's going to be untapped. Here come the Rhinos. Every turn, Rhino.
Yeah, and Chandra can't even just kill 1 Rhino. It starts with 4 loyalty, and you can only do 4 damage to all creatures with that.
Yeah, that when Chandra was first printed, that was a common complaint of the card, is that this card looks really good, but you know what, it doesn't kill. It doesn't kill Siege Rhino. And now we're going to see that in action.
It's going to be a problem. You could put Chandra up to 5, make some tokens, and have it stick around and maybe loot with your hand, try to find that dig through time. So it's not the greatest line.
And this is, so Grixis control as opposed to something like Jeskai Black. I feel like Ray is paying a lot for not having white. We're seeing cards like Grasp of Darkness in his hand. Out of Jeskai Black, we get to have removal spells like Crackling Doom and Ojutai's Command, which on both of them on this board would be phenomenal cards. Instead, Ray has things like Grasp of Darkness. I don't feel like they're hitting as hard.
Yeah, Grasp of Darkness is looking to team up with another removal spell to deal with even 1 Rhino, where if you had Crackling Doom Jace, you just have 2 Rhinos covered.
Well, with a 7th land, he can make that player talking about a Fumarole plus Grasp of Darkness, but he doesn't have it. So instead, he's just going to go for Chandra Flamecaller. And he might be in the unenviable position of trying to race triple Siege Rhino.
Yeah, you know, the first one, he does get to use Jace to kind of bubble it down to a 2-power creature, which is not nothing, though. the second copy and then more threats from there, they start getting out of control.
Yeah, Rhino will block one of the elementals. The other one will swing in for 3. Cran down to 13. His draws land 5. Now remember, Cran has a Chandra of his own if he gets to 6 mana.
Oh yeah, that would be huge for Cran. When you're the aggro, those 3/1 tokens matter a lot more.
Wow, okay, Andersen's going to go for Shambling Vent and Rhino, both swinging. Looks like he's going to try to take down Jace. Okay.
Yeah, and Smoldering Marsh was actually a huge draw for Cran because he couldn't actually activate the vent on board.
Oh, wow, you're right. So good play by Andersen. The Jace is down. We're back over to Ray. Now, we might see the rare 0 of Chandra here.
That's actually what I was thinking his plan would be. It was weird to me that Ray played a land last turn. That's one fewer card that he's able to draw. So I'm not sure that I agree with that land drop necessarily, though we'll see if he does go for the 0.
I'm interested by it as well. I like land 7 because of, kind of mentioned before, how he can Fumarole and Grasp now. But yeah, we forget so much about that 0 ability on Chandra.
Yeah, and also the odds of drawing 5 cards and not finding a land anyway, those seem quite low. And in fact, if you find a bunch of lands, then you're really wishing that you would have discarded that one instead of playing it.
All right, so we'll see where Ray wants to go. He's going to fetch. It looks like he's not zeroing. Maybe he has a spell here he wants.
Could also be fetching to reduce the number of lands in his deck with how many cards he's drawing.
That's fair. 7 lands. Yeah, cards, because he has Jason Grasp of Darkness in hand. And if I'm Ray, I'm not really interested in either of those cards at the moment. I want Ruinous Path and Disdainful Stroke.
Of course, he can attack for a metric ton of damage on this turn as well.
New plan by Ray. That's win the game. Here's 2 Elementals as 3/1s. The Fumarole, which I assume is a 4/1, would put Cran down to 3.
Not afraid of that Fiery Impulse. Of course, we already discussed that most likely is not in Chris's deck. So I do like getting aggressive there.
Looks like he didn't, so it's just Cran's at 5. There was no flip on the Fumarole.
Okay. So he is still somewhat wary. There's no reason to flip into the Fiery Impulse, even though you're pretty sure it's not there.
You're pretty sure now. It might just be that there's not, it may not actually change the clock to flip your land.
That's true, too. You have lethal on the table either way.
If Cran plays a Chandra, you're not worried, because if Cran actually plays a Chandra, he's dead. I believe he's possibly dead here.
Well, your Chandra, you do have Grasp of Darkness in Ray's hand still, and the ability to cast it this turn.
Right.
So his Chandra threatens lethal on the opposing Chandra, but doesn't actually get there. It would take the Siege Rhino on top of that.
Right. Cran gonna remove a blocker for Ray. That might be doom for him. He may not have a choice.
No, I think that Cran's lines are slim and none.
Ray will use Grasp of Darkness to fog away the Rhino. No damage dealt. And here's Siege Rhino on Andersen's side. It'll put him to 8. And Perez's attacks only for 7 right now. If he activates the Fumarole and the Chandra, it's 4 from the land, 3 from an Elemental. Chris is at 1. Can Ray get the last point in?
Ray really wants a Murderous Cut right here.
Oh, that'd be great, yeah.
Land in Ruinous Path would also be, or I suppose you just
Ruinous Path, just awaken it.
Right, attack with a land.
Can Perez find damage point 8? He's got 7. Gonna wander along with this land, it looks like.
I was talking a bit earlier about Ray using the 0 ability, but the more I think about it, I tested with Ray for Pro Tour Origins. He's just not the kind of player that's going to take a risk like that and look at 4 cards when he has a game plan with the ones in his hand.
Here's a swing. So this is the line that could put Cran down to 1. A block with Siege Rhino on the Fumarole. Grasp of Darkness hits the Rhino down to a 0/1. The Elemental swing in and put Chris to 2.
That Grasp was huge.
Another Fumarole for Ray.
And now Chris can't even kill the Chandra with Shambling Velt Rhino if he wants to, though 6th land is big.
6th land is big. He goes to 1 to fetch. Now if he plays Chandra though, he loses, right?
He is just dead to the land then, yeah. He could kill the Chandra by attacking with the Rhino, but that doesn't get him there.
We'll see what, okay, he's gonna go for it. He'll play Chandra. Oh no, it just kills Ray. Hold on. 2 elementals, the Rhino, that's 10 damage.
Oh, yeah.
That's, whoa. Okay, so Chris Andersen, with a top deck land for the Chandra, serves lethal and takes the match in 2.
I get kind of in the mindset with a control deck of trying to optimize my turn to manage my opponent's board. Sometimes I forget about the ability to remove the opposing player from the game.
Well, and this is what Siege Rhino does, right? Because Chris Andersen was on the defensive the entire game. And so I like playing Mardu Green. And if you ever play a Siege Rhino deck, there'll be this feeling where you play all these Siege Rhinos defensively, you never attack your opponent, and then all of a sudden one turn you look up and you say, wait a second, this attack's for lethal. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess I did 3M off this Rhino, 3M off another. He fetched some number of times. You're like, wait. I think you're dead. Okay, and that was exactly what happened.